rational functions. Our objective here, we want to define a rational function. Okay, what do we know? Well, the thing we're going to need to keep an eye on here when we deal with rational functions is division by zero. A rational function means we're dealing with a fraction, and as we know, fractions cannot have a zero in the denominator. There is no division by zero. Division by zero is undefined. So, what is a rational function mathematically? A rational function is a quotient, so there's your division, of two polynomial functions. So your function is f of x, and it's a quotient of two polynomial functions. We'll call the numerator polynomial p of x, the denominator polynomial q of x, and of course, as we stated earlier, q of x, the denominator cannot be equal to zero. Okay, because a rational function involves division, we must make note of when the denominator is equal to zero, because division by zero is undefined, as we spoke to up here. Let's take a look at a couple of examples of how this plays out for us. Okay, so for what values of x are the following equations, the following rational functions, undefined? Okay, first example, f of x is equal to x squared minus 25 over x minus 5. We want to focus on the denominator, which is x minus 5, and we want to know when is the denominator equal to 0, because when the denominator is equal to 0 is when this equation, this function, is undefined. Let's add 5 to both sides. And we come up with x is equal to 5. So this, let's make a note, when x is equal to 5, this function, this equation is undefined. And we're going to see what that means when it comes to the graph and the problem coming up in upcoming video lectures. When x equals when x is equal to 5, the equation is undefined. In other words, x cannot equal to, or x is not equal to 5. If you put 5 into here, your calculator will tell you error, cannot do it. Okay, let's take a look at two more examples. Okay, for what values of x are the following functions undefined? We're looking at the denominator. Okay, when is this denominator equal to 0? Because that's when this rational function is undefined. Okay, let's add 25 to both sides to get x squared isolated. Let's square root both sides to get x, and x is equal to positive or negative 5. Remember, taking the square root of both sides results in a positive or negative answer. Okay, which means when x is equal to positive or negative 5, the equation, the function, is undefined. Okay, last example. When is this function undefined? It's a rational function because we have a fraction, a polynomial divided by a polynomial. We look at the denominator. When is it equal to 0? Okay, let's set it equal to 0 and find out when it's equal to 0. Let's subtract 25 from both sides to isolate our x squared term. X squared is negative 25. And I'll continue, but you may be thinking right here, this is not going to happen. There's no way to square a number in the real number system and get a negative. But I'll continue by taking the square root of both sides, and it will say x is equal to error. the calculator is going to say, you can't take the square root of negative 25 in the real number system. There's no way to do that. So we cannot take the square root of a negative. So let's make a note here. There are no x values for which the function or the equation is undefined. UNDEF, undefined. In other words, all x values work. Okay, so there you have it with rational functions and their definition. They are functions that have a polynomial divided by a polynomial, and we need to recognize that when the denominator gives us a 0, the function itself, the equation, is undefined.